do.
Yes, Sander, do stay with us as we move over from West Asia into Eastern Europe. And of course, a senior Pentagon official led by US Army Secretary Stan Briscoe have arrived in Kiev to discuss efforts to end the war with Russia. Their visit follows reports of a new US-Russia framework peace plan allegedly drafted by Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff and Russia's Kirill Dmitriev, which could require major concessions from Ukraine, including giving up remaining territory in the Donbass and reducing its military. Neither Washington nor Moscow has confirmed the plan, however, but US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said a durable peace will require difficult but necessary concessions. European leaders, including Kaja Kallas and Joan Noel Barrot, warned that any plan must have Ukrainian support and cannot involve capitulation. The report surfaced the same day as a Russian attack on Ternopil killed at least 26 people. Ukrainian officials say Zelensky and Trump have already agreed to stop the conflict along the current front lines and discuss security guarantees. Driscoll's delegation is the most senior US military team to visit Kiev under Trump, focusing on battlefield conditions and possible ceasefire plans. Meanwhile, details of the 28-point Witkoff-Dmitriev plan continue to circulate, though Ukraine maintains it will not cede territory and Russia says its original demands remain unchanged. Joining us once again is Sander van Hoorn to discuss this ongoing situation in Russia and Ukraine. Sander, this is the most senior US delegation to visit Kiev under the second Trump administration. Before we get into the aspects of this new peace plan by Dmitriev and Witkoff, what message is Washington trying to send by dispatching this delegation to Kiev right now?
They want this war to be over. They want another peace deal that Trump can claim he made possible. And the pressure is now on the Ukrainians. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is under heavy fire already internally because of corruption scandals. And now he's facing a deal that he, from his perspective, cannot possibly agree on.
Yeah, and Sander, of course, with Ukraine reportedly losing territory on the battlefield, both in Donetsk and other regions. This 28-point plan reportedly calls for Ukraine to give up the remaining Donbass and scale down some of its military while Ukraine will receive security guarantees from the Trump administration. Of course, Zelensky has reiterated time and time again its territorial integrity will remain as it is. Do you think this 28-point plan, if the reports do turn out to be true, could be remotely acceptable to Kiev, given the current circumstances?
Well, if you have to draw lines from past remarks by Zelensky, then it will be in no way acceptable. He does not even want to talk about ceding the Crimea region of Ukraine, which has been held by Russia for a long time. And it would not only mean this 28-point plan as we know it from leaks that have transpired so far. It wouldn't only mean like ceding the parts of the Donbas region that are being held by Russia right now. It would mean ceding all of Donbas, so also the parts that are being held by Ukraine right now. Now, that's not only about ceding territory, it's also about being able to defend what's left of Ukraine, because the most active front lines, but also the most active defensive lines that Ukraine holds are located in the Donbas region. So that's a very worrying point. Now, the other points you talked about, like reducing the size of the Ukrainian army and ceding long-range missiles, that is something that may be discussed by Ukraine. They have stated so in the past, but that will also depend on the guarantees, the security guarantees being provided provided by the Europeans, but notably, of course, by the Americans. And about that detail of the 28-point plan, nothing has transpired so far. So the extent and the toughness of those American security guarantees, a lot of things will depend on that. But the territorial concessions, I think, for any Ukrainian president at this point will be a no-go.
Okay, so Sander, once again, I do request you stay with us for our last update coming out of the Ukraine conflict. And EU foreign ministers are meeting in Brussels amid reports of growing pressure on Ukraine to consider a secretive draft peace plan that would require major concessions for Kyiv. The plan, reportedly developed by a US envoy and a Kremlin advisor, would give Russia sweeping control over Ukraine's military and political structure and is widely seen as a form of capitulation. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said any proposal must be backed by both Ukrainians and Europeans to be viable. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot also said peace cannot mean surrender for Kyiv and called for a ceasefire along the contact line to begin any serious discussions. Let's in fact listen in to some comments made by the diplomat.
What we as Europeans have always supported is a long-lasting and just peace, and we welcome any efforts to achieve that. Of course, for any plan to work, it needs Ukrainians and Europeans on board. So this is very clear.
Discussions should start with a ceasefire on the contact line that allow for negotiation on the question of territories, on the question of security guarantees. We have said that, the US have said that, President Trump has said that, and Ukrainians are ready for this. The only obstacle to such ordered discussions so far is Vladimir Putin.
Involved. I don't know what the involvement of Ukraine has been in this plan, but obviously for us it is important that whatever peace plan is on the table, that Ukraine is behind it. This is up to Ukraine. It's about Ukrainian territory, it's about Ukrainian sovereignty, so without a buy-in of Ukraine, you won't get the support of the Europeans.
Sander van Hoorn joins us once again. Do you think both the Russians and the Americans are looking at Europe to make any decisions here? Kaja Kallas, of course, says that the plan needs support from Europeans. Does this mean the EU is preparing to openly resit any US-Russia framework imposed from the outside of these discussions?
Well, the problem for the Europeans right now, the foreign ministers meeting in Brussels as we speak, is that they are not privy to the details of the plan. They have not been part of the negotiations about this plan, and that is a big frustration. So will they, just as Ukraine, be left second-guessing what the Americans and the Russians agree upon, and will they be left to pay the bill in the end? That is the questions that will be raised in Brussels today. And can Ukraine actually resist the Americans if they don't agree with the plan? Because the problem is that Ukraine is getting the most of the money from the Europeans, but most of the weapons that are being delivered, and sometimes they are paid for by the Europeans, those are American weapons. So there's only a certain extent that you can say no to the Americans. But the Europeans, and you could hear it in the quotes that you just aired, the Europeans are increasingly worried and frustrated about the way these talks between Russia and America are going.
Sander van Hoorn, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's a pleasure to have had your insight here on the programme. We now move on, and at least 26 people have been killed, including 3 children, in a Russian missile strike and drone attack in the western city of Ternopil in Ukraine. The strikes reportedly hit 2 blocks of flats in the western city of Ternopil. Ukrainian President Zelensky has said that 22 people remain missing at the site of the Russian attack in the Ukrainian territory. Ukraine's Air Force said that it had shot down 442 out of 476 drones and 41 out of 48 missiles launched by Russia during the strikes. Energy facilities, transport and civil infrastructure were also damaged elsewhere in western Ukraine. Electrical supplies are already being rationed, and after the latest attacks, the Energy Ministry announced more power cuts across the country. We, of course, will keep you updated on everything coming out of the conflict as soon as we get it here on NewsX World. Now we move over